Well, let me just start by saying that, obviously, the reason I came here was because of our extreme concern about the humanitarian situation. I mean, we have two crises simultaneously, if you like. We have the crisis in the what we no longer call the no-fire zone, or the safe zone, the crisis in the zone with people still trapped there, and the extreme concern about the high level of civilian casualties that we've seen. And then we have the crisis of actually dealing physically with all the people who got out about a week ago, which is why I was up in Virginia today looking at the camps and at the crossing point in Omentai out of the Vani. On the first point, that rate of civilian casualties has worried us enormously. I've seen the statement which the government made earlier today. I think that's a welcome statement. What we need to see is that actually implemented on the ground so that the level of civilian casualties drops from what it's been, and we want to see those people get out as soon as possible. So that's very much our hope and what we will work towards, and I hope that can happen as soon as possible, and I hope that the idea of not using heavy weapons will be genuinely effective this time, which I'm afraid it's not been in the past. So that's the first issue. The second issue is what's happening to those who got out, the 100,000 people or more who are now in the Virginia area. It's clear from going to the Manic Farm area which I was in that this is an enormous challenge of 100,000 people turning up in a few days. I mean, we were prepared for it up to a point, obviously, but even so the services were overwhelmed in the first few days. I think what you can see now is that the situation is beginning to stabilize, that we are beginning to get huge numbers of tents up. I mean, 4,000 tents have been put up in the last few days. There's some more to put up, some more tents will arrive tomorrow. The water systems are beginning to be organized, the food is beginning to get better. We'll have to register people. So there's a huge challenge there, which we in the government, when I say we, I mean the humanitarian community, the agencies, the NGOs, we in the government are trying to tackle it again. And we are making some progress. They've appointed the Chief of Staff of the Army as the competent authority. I think he's beginning to make things happen, which is good. We've had some worries about blockages at the Medavachi checkpoint, some worries about how easy the NGOs are finding it to operate. I hope those blockages will be tackled quickly so that we can really get on with helping people. The agencies, I think, and the NGOs are doing a good job. UNHCR, UNICEF in particular, UNHCR tents have been fantastic help in this very difficult situation. Obviously resources are going to be an issue, and I've said today that I'm prepared to release another $10 million from the Central Emergency Response Fund, which is a UN fund which I manage. We committed $10 million a few weeks ago. Clearly there's another very urgent need now, so I've agreed to release $10 million. The other issue which we've been worried about all the way through, and continue to be worried about, is the conditions in the camps. I don't mean the physical conditions, I mean the freedom of movement, the opportunities for family reunification, the prospects for return, all the things about making sure that international standards and principles are met in these camps. I've repeated those concerns and have been assured again that the kind of recommendations which we and others have made, Walter Kalin, who is the Secretary General's expert on the human rights of internally displaced people, made when he was here, they will be respected, and we will see progress over time. I want to see that progress as rapidly as possible, because I think that's very important in reassuring the people in the camps and the Tamil population in general that they will be treated in accordance with all these normal standards, and we'll be able to return to their places of origin.
It's been quite clear the army is shelling the no-fly zone.
Well,
are you satisfied that stopped?
I'm not satisfied it stopped. I can't.
So it's carrying on.
Well, I don't know. I can't guarantee it stopped. I've heard those stories as well. I hope they're not true. I fear they may be true. It's absolutely important that what the government said is now respected.
Do you worry they don't have an exact figure for the number of people still inside the zone?
Well, obviously we would like an exact figure. The government has discussed that with the President. We would all like an exact figure. We believe it's 50,000 plus. The government say it's a lot less than that. I think nobody knows for certain. But it's sensible to plan for the bigger figure, both in terms of the aid you need to get in there and the planning for when they get out. Of course, there are those who say the figure is even much higher than 50,000. So we have the same conflict of numbers we had before. I have to say that when this conflict of numbers happened last time, our figures were more accurate than those of the government.
They say possibly as little as 2,000 people left there. I mean, doesn't that worry when they're talking about the end stage of a military campaign, that they're only thinking about 2,000 civilian lives?
They haven't used that figure with me. I mean, they've talked about more like 15 or 20,000, but I think the key thing is how many there are. These are people who are in mortal danger as long as the fighting goes on. So we need to get them out of there as soon as possible, and that's very much our aim. Of course, the danger of using heavy weapons in that area is absolutely clear and obvious. The concentration of people is such that any heavy weapon impacting that area is almost certain to cause civilian casualties, and that's what we've been saying.
You said you were going to ask for access for humanitarian workers to the conflict zone. What was the response?
That is still something we're discussing. We have not got agreement on that. I would have liked to have had agreement on that to get that team in there. I think the government's view for the moment is they have no objection in principle to a team going in there, but the security conditions are not adequate for that. That's why we said, well, in that case, we should have a humanitarian pause so that we can get in there and assess the situation for ourselves. And also, we need to get more aid in there. There's obviously problems with food in there, the medical supplies. The ICRC ships are still going in, the evacuation ships. They're taking some food, and I hope they'll be taking today or tomorrow medical supplies, which are very badly needed. But the bigger food ship, ICRC food ship, has not been able to go in at the moment because of these security conditions on the ground, so that's causing problems for us.
The statement that combat operations have reached their conclusion, does that have any meaning for you when today there was another offensive?
Well, we need to see what that does mean on the ground. I hope it means that the intensity of the fighting will be very much reduced. That will give an opportunity for the population to get out safely, and that indeed there will be not heavy weapons used. But we've just been discussing the reports that they are being used, and that's very disappointing if it's true.
You're saying that you hope there'll be less intensity of fighting, but yesterday you said you hope there'll be an actual pause.
No, I hope
is the likelihood of that any greater now, do you think?
I don't think it is at the moment, no. I've said that again, we would like to see a humanitarian pause. Whatever the military concerns about that, it would be extremely good for the people themselves, the civilians who are on the ground, to have a rest, a respite, a chance to move around, a chance to find food and so on. But I have to say that I don't see much prospect of that.
The number of people, the casualties in the last 3 months or so?
Well, we've always said we're not going to put an official figure on that because we can't verify that figure in the kind of detail we would need to be able to do to make it our own figure. But we've said that we believe the civilian casualties are very high, certainly in the thousands in the last 3 months, and that's what's got to stop.
Are you sensitive to the point that they have spent 3 years fighting this war, and that they feel that Sri Lanka will have a better future if these people are wiped out, the Tigers?
Well, I can understand that train of thought. I think our view is that the key point is when this conflict comes to an end, and however it ends, and it's much better if it ends without more civilian bloodshed, then there's a real need to address the political issues, to find solutions to the political problems which underlie all this, and to react in a generous way to make sure that you not only win the military victory, but you win the peace as well, and that's obviously crucial.
Do you think the government is similarly minded to what you just characterised?
Well, I hope so. Didn't discuss that in detail today. I've had that discussion in the past with the President and the government, and certainly they say they understand that point very clearly. They need to win the peace as well as the need to win the war, and we need to see that put into effect.
You and the Norwegian specialists have been talking to the LTT leaders. Is there any relaxation of their conditions to end the war, or is it others saying ceasefire and nothing else?
Well, the contacts I had, I must say, there was no give, as it were, in terms of any willingness to let the civilians go or any possibility of laying down their arms or surrendering. So there was no progress that actually helped to end the situation in the way that one might have hoped.